mute myself and disappear, but I'll be here if you guys need me.
Thank you, Daniel.
Hey, so basically, I was just gonna do you guys have any questions or concerns about the lawsuit? That was my biggest. I'm gonna talk with Robbie to see. I think we're gonna go ahead and implement that you don't do a showing without a buyer agency, since it's gonna start in July anyway. You might as well just go ahead and do it, and get comfortable with that. So we'll just make that an office policy when we update the handbook. And the ALC is gonna vote on it next month. So we're going to put that to them in advance, but I feel comfortable that it's going to be a new office policy. So, Kim, do you have any, or Shanice, do you understand the lawsuit that just happened or have questions?
So I attended the, I forget what the meeting was called, the one that happened yesterday. So I kind of.
Yeah, okay, good, for Keller Williams.
Yeah. Yes, I don't know.
Yeah, that was a wealth of information. Thank you.
Yeah, it was very helpful. So I understand the back end of it, but I don't understand what the lawsuit was about that led to it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I was afraid of. So basically in Missouri, a group of folks started a class action lawsuit and they named all of the big brands like Berkshire Hathaway, Remax. I mean, anybody that was a big Compass, Keller Williams, like anybody that was a big. And then they named, of course, the National Association. And what they're saying is basically, can I have some more diet, please? No yellow. Thank you, gracias. The thing is, they claim that they didn't understand that what they were paying to sell the house was going to a buyer's agent, and they didn't understand why a seller would be paying the buyer's fees. And really what happens is the seller pays the office fee, like pays the their own agent fee, and then the agent actually pays the other agent. Because in the listing agreement, there's a price to sell a house. Now our office is 6%. And then later on in the paperwork, it says how much we share with other firms. Well, that's where the breakdown of how much the price is you get on a buying side. So that's where it came from. The sellers were claiming that they were confused and never knew that. Well, now a couple of things. Our forms in North Carolina are so strict and so tight, I'll say, in a good way, that we didn't have that issue as long as the agents are explaining the listing contract correctly. It's that, hey, and I'll use our office as an example because there is no standard commission. That hey, we charge 6% to sell your house. And then later on in the paperwork, we say, now, we also want to pay the other side and attract buyers, folks to bring other agents to bring buyers to your house. And we share that 6% with them. And now, this is where the seller actually gets to agree with how much they share. Some agents don't have that conversation that, hey, we're in this together, to how much we're sharing. And they, I've seen 2.5, I've seen 2.4, I've seen 5. I've seen 3, I've seen all kinds of stuff. There is no standard out there. It's whatever the seller and their agent agree, pay the other side. As our office, you can vary within 1 percentage point. So if you were being competitive and wanted to list the house and say, look, I know you're listing with me, or if they say, hey, so-and-so will do it for 5%, you can match that within one percentage point. So the office fee is 6, you can drop to 5. And then it's up to the two of you all to how much you share with the commission. So I would say that's half and half, and that's 2.5, 2. And that's where it was. It started there. And once they got all the big brands on, and then NAR on the lawsuit, they that took care of a majority of agents in the country, and it became a class action suit. And then anyone that had a transaction between 2019 and 21 could file claim onto that same lawsuit as a big cluster. So we fought it at first because we believe we do explain it. We do believe we do have a standard in the office that, we share and we explain to our clients. And again, in North Carolina, you've not seen a lawsuit like that because of our forms being so strong, but you saw it everywhere else. Like Missouri, that state don't even have a buyer's agency agreement. There's 23 states that don't have a buyer agency agreement. So that's why each state rule varied so much in the lawsuit. So you saw a South Carolina suit, you saw an Illinois suit, you saw like suits popped up. There 14 all in all. So Keller Williams fought it. A couple of brands actually settled before it, once the ruling came out. So what happened was we could continue to fight it, but we would have had to put up the money. And not that I'm using this as an example, just like Donald Trump had to put up 400 and whatever million, Keller Williams and NAR would have had to put up $4 billion until the appeals process worked out. And that would cripple the industry.
Jason, who would, I guess, so the settlement that happened,
Yeah.
What's the final settlement? And then who gets that money if there's actual money involved? Does that make sense? And like you said, North Carolina, we have very strong documents,
No.
Is it really going to affect us, or is it really affecting those states that never had the documents?
Well, the lawsuit itself and the settlement really isn't affecting us right now because we already have buyer agency. The only thing that's changing is you have to have it. Like I would do a one and done. Like I'll take you to a house and show you and meet you and see if we want to work together. But I'm not going to show you like 4 and 5 houses because I want to get paid. So now the only change is you have to sign one before you show a house. And again, that's supposed to start in July. But again, I think we're going to go ahead and start as an office policy so you get used to it. The other thing that has to happen is, ironically, 4 years ago, they wanted to be transparent and they started a clear cooperation rule, meaning that you had to put your house in the MLS within 24 hours if you marketed it. What that was trying to prevent was agents putting signs in the yard or putting it on Facebook and trying to get both sides of the commission or only within their own office before they put it out to all the public. And that's what you call a pocket listing. So the rule came about that you have to put it in there within 24 hours of any marketing. And then the second thing you had to do was had to put in the commission amount, had to be public. Well, now they're saying 4 years later, we're taking the commission out. It can't be.
We got a good deal on that though.
So the DOJ calls it decoupling, meaning the buying side, the selling side can't pay both. So the buyer pays the buyer, the seller pays the seller. Not that it says that a seller can't continue to pay. Just like a concession, you could still say, okay, we'll offer this for your house as long as you would pay this to my agent. Because as we know, buyers can't afford down payments.
Buyers can what?
They can't afford down payments now.
Right.
Like they have such a bulk of the transaction between inspections and appraisals and like at FHA, they got to have 3% of the loan down. I mean, then they've got the attorney's fee on the buying side is like $1,200, where on the selling side it's like $250. So the seller's only expense is literally the attorney piece and the agent commission. I mean, for the most part, the rest of it's not coming from the seller. So you can still ask for that as part of the new offer. And they're just going to take that commission line out of the MLS. So
essentially, we can still ask the seller essentially to cover that cost though.
Absolutely. Yep. We just saved me one without onions. It's half onions.
Jason,
sorry, guys.
though, is that going to fluctuate like like if it's not in MLS, so like you have a listing, but you didn't put the compensation in MLS, and I call you with a buyer, can you tell me 3%, but you can tell Shanice 2.5 if she brings a buyer 3 days later? Like, how is that going to work?
Exactly. My fear is, and I don't know the answer to this, but, and I'll be honest, if you get multiple offers and Mary's is 2.5% to the buyer's agent and Robbie's is 3% to the buyer's agent, mine's 2% to the buyer's agent, which offer are you going to take? Like, I mean, I think it's creating disparaging situations. So again, I think it's but they're saying it should be decoupled so that the buyer has to pay it. You don't have to, it doesn't matter to the seller what you're getting paid as the buyer's agent.
So now we have to tell our buyers that you're gonna pay us to help you buy a house.
Yep.
To find the house and solidify the deal.
Yeah, and that'll be coming in July.
Oh, no.
Supposedly. So
there'll be a lot of unrepresented buyers out there.
Well, again, that's the other fear. Like, they still need representation. But they're going to be like, I can't afford a buyer's agent. So they're just, the listing agent's going to get all of it.
That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like a disadvantage to the buyers. If you're trying to go into a transaction knowing nothing, buying real estate, I think this, it sounds like I didn't read about how it all came about, but it just seems like there was some miseducation on the seller side, which led to them like, why am I paying this?
How much I win, right? Well, see, to me, that falls back on agents on the listing side not explaining properly and them saying, well, why am I paying that? It's turned into class action. So back to your earlier question, where does that money go? Half of it's going to attorneys. So like KW paid 80 million, 40 million goes to attorneys. The other 40 million gets split up amongst the 14 lawsuits. So you're talking these sellers, however many there'll be, they probably might see $500 to $1,000 maybe. By the time you divide up 40 million between 14 states and however many people signed on. So the sellers are actually not winning in this thing, they're losing. So that's my take on it.
But North Carolina was not part of the lawsuit, wasn't included?
They were not, other than we're drug into it because we're a member of NAR and we're a member of Keller Williams' name. So Keller Williams is drug into it. Berkshire Hathaway's name, they're drug into it. One of the best Mexican food I've ever had in North Carolina. That's what's going on. So again, there's more, like I've had 3 webinars last week. I got 2 this week about it. I mean, I do know North Carolina's changing the forms. I found that out on a call yesterday, that the compensation form is going to be updated and will be much more strict because you're going to probably have to have a compensation form with every offer.
Yeah.
So the forms committee is hard at work. I do know that. Because I made 2 suggestions. If
we're now, having to get a buyer agency signed before we even show a house to a buyer client, when we're having that commission conversation with them, what is their charge? Like, what are we charging them?
So the office is 3%, and you can vary within 1 percentage point without management of people. But see, then again, that's the other part of the state law we have in North Carolina is, and as part of the agreement, the price can't fluctuate anymore. Like you can't say, you have to tell them what the fee is up front. Like it's 3%, it's 3%. If it's $2,000, it's $2,000. Like whatever you say the fee is what the fee y'all agree. And you can't vary from that. So like if a builder offers a $500 bonus or $1,000 agent bonus to close by the 30th, that's not on the buyer's agent agreement originally. So you have to update that agreement to even be allowed to accept that extra money because it says you're not allowed to accept additional funds. So, but lots more to come, I'm sure. Trust me. And it's not until July, so there'll be changes between them. The other thing is it's not even agreed upon yet. So we've asked about it, we offered it, but the judge has not said yes, it's okay. So that help?
Yeah, so does this really mean though, since it's, I guess affecting multiple states, that every state now will have the same kind of paperwork? Or does this put us right back in the same boat where everybody gets to, have their own paperwork, but are we all playing with the same instruction?
No, forms are by state because there are so many rules and regs that are state laws. So there'll never be a national form for anything. They'll
But
just
do
be
you see what I'm saying? Like, are they gonna have forms that'll protect us, say, 4 years from now? Where,
yeah, yes.
you know what I mean? Like, kind of, if we've already gotten this mess because of another state, what's keeping us from getting in another mess because, down the road?
Well, I
Because
think there's still going to be future lawsuits. I mean, this is nowhere near the end. That's why there was one that said they settled one, and it was here's the other thing: the jury in Missouri. There's a state law about the jury in Missouri. Hey, I'm with Mary and Robbie, so we're having Mexican.
Yum.
You don't know what we did this morning in Hillsborough, trust me. We deserve it. I was flat on my back with a drill. So, what the jury was not even allowed to know their own state law was not even allowed to be read in court, which is an antitrust law. And the judge ruled that you could not state that law to the jury. And so that's why we felt strongly on appeal that they would lose, because there's a state law about saying you can't have antitrust. But the jury is made up of their peers. But when you go to appeals court, there is no jury, it's judges. And judges work by law, not by what we think as a general public. But again, that would have been multi-years, and the money would have had to keep being paid. So it was no end in sight without settling. So financially. But so that's the biggie. But as soon as Missouri, the jury came back, that's where you saw 13 more lawsuits across the country. That's 3 of the best thing for sure.
Okay.
Anyway, that was my big thing, is wanted to make sure that you all felt comfortable, understood the lawsuit. Had no questions. The big thing was commission's going to be taken off the screen in the MLS. Buyer agency has to be signed before you show a house. And then it's decoupled. Not that you can't still ask for the commission from the seller. And like in concessions, see, that's another thing. Some loans don't even allow commission to be rolled into the loan.
Mhm.
So you've got like a FHA, VA, USDA, they don't allow you to put commission into a loan. So who's going to pay that? So, boom.
So Jason, what about,
Yep.
So for example, I have a buyer that wants to see a house tomorrow, and say we're starting this, and we go into buyer agency.
Yep.
Is that where I tell them, okay, you're going to pay me 3% if we, obviously find a house, and you in turn buy it? But how do I then communicate? Or we can ask the seller to pay, through the seller's agent to pay my commission. But it's like, if they say no, I still have you on the end over here to pay me.
Yeah, literally, that's exactly right. So if you say 3% with your buyer, and you go see a house, right? And that seller only offers 1%. Well, your buyer still owes you 2% for the agreement.
Okay.
Which again, they may not even have cash on hand for that. Like, you don't know. So it's almost like there's gonna have to be a buyer pre-qualification with how can you pay me?
It has to be, because why would I spend all that time and I'm not going to get paid?
We should do that for the next value square. Glad did.
Because I don't know that listing agent is going to pay me anything.
When they did
You
a
don't.
watch party for the value square.
So the flip side of that,
Yeah, but just do
what is,
something like,
what is
have a lender
KOE,
and
what are we
partner them,
doing
buy
when we
things
are
out, but,
listing,
you know.
or when we're working with a seller client? Are we telling that seller client, like, we prefer that they will cover buyer commission? Like, even if it's not
Well, here's the
in-house,
thing,
like,
yeah, here's the conversation I would say is that, you know, this is our fee. And of course, we would want buyers agents to bring buyers. So if you do offer one, you're more likely to find a buyer for your house quicker. If you don't offer it, you know, you hurt yourself.
Because there's gonna be nobody bringing a buyer that doesn't have money to pay an agent. I mean,
Yep.
that's, at the end of the day, you're right. You just said it. You want to get paid. We all want to get paid. Why am I gonna bring any buyers to anybody?
And then what you could say is, like if I listed in my comments, I could say the seller's offering a 3% concession, which means they're paying the agent 3%.
You can write that like in the private remarks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So does that make sense?
Mhm.
And I've seen posts like pseudo putting the percentage in there by saying stuff like recent renovation, three renovation, 3 recent like to get percent. We wouldn't want to code our language, but right now it's all jokes, but nobody's got the real rule on how we're going to do this yet.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a hot mess until we get clearer direction. But I think a lot of it's going to come from forms.
So right now, if we have, like, for example, I have a buyer who I have a buyer's agency agreement with. We're clearly looking for property. So how is that going to affect them now? Like, since I signed this before this ever happened, now I
It
have to
wouldn't
go back
affect it until the expiration.
of the contract.
Right. No. Like if you have an existing something, it stays in place until the end. It doesn't change. Like if you list a house and like the forms change July 1st, for 60 days you can still use 23 forms and 24 forms. Same thing. If you've got something already in writing, you don't have to change it until it expires. So,
We'll take box, yeah, a couple boxes, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, so that was my biggie. I just want to talk about the lawsuit and make sure y'all are comfortable. Especially with you all being the newest. So that we wouldn't want you to have an uncomfortable conversation without being prepared to have it. So, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, here's a big hug. I appreciate y'all.
Thank
And
you.
sorry we're delayed. I couldn't get the password. So.
you're fine. Thank you.
And then it wanted the 2-step verification and this, that, and the other and everything else. Now that works. So
Sounds
glad you're
good.
back, Kimmy.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye, Shanice.